So, Silicon Echo. This was the developer that a couple of weeks ago had over 200 of their games pulled from the Steam store, have now decided to bow out of the, in air quotes, game development business, which they seem to think they are in. So, have either of you read the article on this?
I confess that I've not. I mean, we were talking a couple of weeks ago about questionable adult material games being pulled from Steam. I don't know if we even touched on the fact that these 200 odd had been yanked, but at the time it looked like Valve were finally starting to pull down games that were against their kind of what they expected on their platform. As it turns out, they kind of are, but they're kind of not. It's not a moral thing, or it's not a socially moral thing. It turns out that it's literally just all of these games that were by this one publisher, which is completely overwhelming. I've once again, I've not read up on it any further than that.
So, right, so it wasn't. It was one game publisher, but they had manipulated the Steam storefront. So all these games were basically almost clones of each other. So all the games are pretty much the same. It made up some ridiculous amount of the games that came out in 2 months. It was like almost half the games that came out in these 2 months were just this company under their various monikers. And look, I mean, listen to this quote, right? So he said, the situation has completely destroyed everything we have been working for in the past 3 years, and we are forced to give up game development at this point for more than one reason. Okay? Mainly because our reputation is destroyed beyond repair, and also for financial reasons. And this is the bit that gets me. We wish we had been warned about this before. In that case, we would have focused on a different business plan of development. What, you mean you wouldn't have been a complete scumbag and just put up 200 asset flips to try and make a quick buck?
Did they actually put effort into games?
No, that's what I mean. They're pretty much all asset flips and clones of one another. They're all the same. So they're making themselves out to be victims.
It is an odd situation because obviously Valve pretty much opened the door to everyone when they said, pay us £100 or $100, and as soon as you made that back, you've broken even because you've paid for your deposit, and you're laughing. So when they said that, as far as I know, I haven't looked into it. I'm probably the worst person to talk about it, but as soon as they said that, it did kind of open the floodgates, not to use that term that's been bandied around so much. But so of course things like this are going to appear where people are literally going to flip assets and try and... I mean, if they had 200 games and they're £100 each, that's £20,000, okay, $20,000 that people have put into getting these games on the storefront, expecting, if it sells at $1 each, 100 sales or 20,000 sales across 200 products. And the industry doesn't work like that at the minute. This whole thing just seems really alien.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it just boggles my mind that they are in this situation. They're painting themselves to be a victim, whereas they know exactly what they're doing. What Steam have said is that that it says here. So so these 200 games made up almost half of product complaints for over those 2 months, and that's why they looked into it and took them all down. So it's just another scumbag dev trying to make a quick buck. And I mean, Steam put it here. It's just like stuff like this makes it hard for the consumer to find games they actually want, because it just floods the storefront.
See, there's an issue here, because when they put a simple paywall on it rather than an approval wall, even Steam greenlights weird community and easily corrupted kind of person authorization wall rather than a paywall was better than this. But when they put a paywall on this, they did essentially open up the storefront like the App Store, like a mobile phone storefront. So this kind of thing is going to happen. It's weird, actually, that they've taken it down. Now, I understand completely that they've flooded the storefront, but Valve's whole thing was about curation, meaning that they can allow whatever they want into it, because the curation system will recommend based on what's popular and based on what is similar to what you're playing and what your friends are playing. So theoretically, these new games should never have barricaded anything off of the front page. They should have only harassed the new releases section, and the new releases section of all of the sections on Steam should be the one thing that's curated by Valve themselves, if not by a bunch of review websites. So, I mean, this is, the developers aren't victims here. They're definitely not victims here. Even if they, mistakenly thought that they were running full speed into a new app store, as it were, they're still not victims here based on what they did. But it does underline that there are some major flaws in Valve's Steam client.
See, the thing that gets me about this is why they couldn't, like you say, they took away Greenlight and they brought in the paywall. Why didn't they combine the two, right? So, what I'm putting forward here to Gabe, you're not going to be listening to this, but I'll say, hey Gabe, listen to this, right? If you're asking for a dev to pay £100 to get a game on your store, that £100 can quite easily go towards someone playing that game for at least a couple of hours to see if it is worthy to put on the system. It's just, I mean, obviously they say, there's so much we can't afford to pay people. If you're paying £100, I mean, even if you just get a bunch of interns and just pay them, $10 an hour, that means they could play 10 of these games for the price of one game going up for an hour, and then at least get human eyes on these things and just say, look, this is an asset flip, no, go away. Even if you just go, right, no, okay, refund the money to the dev, go away, we don't want it. It would still be a better system.
That's a good point, because on Greenlight, you still had to pay money to get the Greenlight license to upload onto the Greenlight storefront system. But that money went to charity. That money, now that money is being raised each time a single game is being listed on the system, they could use that money for that. I mean, there was actually talk at a Valve thing recently about using select people to influence the way that the curation stuff appeared. And if kind of people volunteer almost and they tweak and finesse the system, and that's a brilliant idea. But I do like the idea of the fact that it should ultimately come down to at least some system in place, like we've discussed previously, kind of like, has this got nudie ladies in it? Has this got torture porn in it? Is this actually just an asset flip? Is this? Is this that? This kind of core commandments list, and a group of people that go through and check it. I think that's probably the way it's going to have to go.
I mean,
if it's not going to be the App Store or have crazy stories like this every 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, you could even basically open this up to the Steam community itself, not on a vote system, but say, you have a system where you can sign up for almost like a QA position, and every month you'll get chucked 3 or 4 games just saying, have a play of this, fill out this simple form, send it back, and we'll give you Steam credit for each one you do, or something simple like that. You could outsource this to the community easily, and I think it would be. I don't know. I mean, obviously, there's still the possibility of corruption there, but if it was all done kind of internally by Valve and it was done on a completely random basis, like we've got 10,000 people signed up for this program, we'll send it to these 15 at random, and then we'll send this game to this 15 people at random. You could easily set something like that up, and I can guarantee you there would be hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of people that would be perfectly happy to do that.
The issue is the judgment of those people. I mean, that's the big issue here, because I won't like certain games, other people won't like certain games, so you'd need to give to a diverse group.
Well, yeah, that's
to
what I mean.
warrant that.
But I mean,
then
you could easily set up some kind of algorithm on the system that checks what's in people's libraries and what they play the most, and just go, right, this game's going to be okay for this person, this game's going to be okay for this person. They've got all that data.
That's true. That's very true. This could be the start of a proper curation system.
Yeah.
An actual reliance on the community that play the games to check the games. It's going to be a hard thing to implement, but I think for Valve to keep control of the tides, they're going to have to implement something like this, either a community-led curation system or their own curation system. One is very expensive, one puts a lot of trust into the community, but they need to decide on one or the other, because while they're lumbering around in limbo, they aren't making any progress.
Yep. Yeah, well, we'll just finish off this segment by saying this idea is trademark 2017 Terry Jeffries. Gabe, I just asked for 5%.